But I do think a challenge for you is to actually be content with your life just as it is. That you don't need the new house, the this, the that, the like just what you have already and what you've already accomplished. It's already great, Christine. And sometimes it's okay to take a little break. As, from the moment I've met you, you have been focused on something. And it's just harder to be content with the small things in life and like turn your attention toward where you are now and the people that you just have now. Just what it is now. Even, I mean, yeah, it's easier said than done because I do think this is your personality, but I just feel like I want you to rest. Okay. Like to just instead of seeking opportunities, let the opportunities come to you kind of thing. Like just focus on yourself.
Welcome to Flourish in the Foreign, the award-winning podcast that celebrates, elevates, and affirms the voices and stories of Black women living and thriving abroad, while exploring living abroad as a pathway to wellness. I'm your host, Christine Job, a Black American woman with Trinidadian roots, a business strategist and consultant from Atlanta, living and thriving in Valencia, Spain. Hey everyone, welcome to Flourish in the Foreign. I am Christine Job. If you're new to listening to the podcast, welcome. If you have been listening to the podcast for a while, hey, it's been a while. I'm popping up on your feed during this hiatus, because yes, we're still on hiatus. No new interviews quite yet to drop this new episode for y'all because I just felt compelled and I missed y'all. And to be honest, you guys have shown me so much love during this hiatus that is needed to let you guys know that I feel seen and I feel heard and I feel loved. And so I just wanted to share that with all of you. And I'll be sharing a little bit more about what has been going on in my world during this hiatus in a few. But I also wanted to share that by going on hiatus, I've created the space to do more one-on-one coaching, which I have been doing. I'm really enjoying it. So if you've just been dreaming of a life abroad, but you really fear the unknown because, hey, the world is crazy and you don't necessarily want to leap from the frying pan into the fire, I highly suggest taking advantage of the limited time offer, Move Abroad with Intention, personalized coaching. You get full access to the Move Abroad with Intention course, and you get to chat with me, Christine, for either your 5 weeks, if you choose that option, or 6 weeks. I will help you dive deep into your vision, help you select the perfect country, teach you some things that I know about managing finances, build a resilient mindset, but most importantly, really help you create that bespoke game plan that's really going to help you navigate your time abroad so that you can be successful. And successful just means that you can uproot yourself and plant yourself and you can be nourished. All right. That's what success means here. So with over 7 years of experience abroad and insights from over 100 interviews with thriving Black women abroad, I'll ensure that you're not just moving abroad, but flourishing abroad, okay? Don't let fear hold you back. I know these times are uncertain, but this is the time to move with intention. This is the time to really get your game plan together and to set forth on this very beautiful journey. I'd be honored to help you with that. So if this feels like something that's right for you, please do not wait. Don't wait on it, because then I might not have the availability and that would suck for you. So if you feel it, please go ahead and take advantage of this opportunity. Come work with me. The information is in the link in the description of this episode. Shoot me an email. I'm looking forward to meeting you and working with you. All right. Quick plug. On to the episode. Today's episode is a compilation. And in this compilation, we're exploring wellness abroad. What does it mean to seek wellness abroad? What does it mean to cultivate wellness abroad? What does it mean to maintain wellness abroad? For those of you that have been listening to the podcast for some time, you know that when I'm talking about wellness abroad, I'm not just talking about bath bombs and crystals, though we love them all, don't we? We do. But we're really examining financial wellness, physical wellness, emotional, spiritual, mental, professional, all of the different arenas of wellness that intersect in our daily lives now. And of course, we take with us when we go abroad. Those needs do not magically evaporate once we land on quote unquote foreign soils. So this is a compilation of past podcast guests discussing what their personal definition of wellness means, how that definition has evolved as they've lived abroad, and what are the types of practices they engage in to cultivate and to maintain wellness abroad. I think you're going to like this one. But I'm going to let the lovely ladies of Flourish in the Foreign tell you all about it. Season 1, episode 36 features Nia in Qatar. In Nia's episode, we talked about her journey to studying abroad in Qatar, where she has now earned her MFA. We also discussed how her time abroad has shaped what is possible for her as a professional artist. And so I asked Nia, what is her personal definition of wellness, and how had living abroad transformed not only her life, but also her definition and practice of wellness?
Before coming abroad, I don't think I had a definition of wellness. I did not start to give myself attention until I came into this environment. And now the way I would define wellness is stability. It's emotional stability, financial stability, stability in your relationships, in your career, your academics, your spirituality. Like, it's stability. Everything is at a balance. And at the center of it, no matter what it is always you. It's what you want and what you need. Like, even if you care for others, you have to care for yourself first. Otherwise, you won't be able to care for them how you want. And so living abroad has helped me shape this really just by introducing the concept, the idea that I can put myself first in all of these different categories, and that that's okay. When I was in undergrad, one of the only teachers I had that I feel I actually learned something from when it came to art, she said that there's not enough paint in the world that can fix a bad drawing. And at first I'm like, what? What does that even mean? You can just paint over anything. But the reality is that you can't. Like, you need to have a plan. You need to have a technical drawing or whatever it is you're going to do. You have to sketch it out. Because if you just start putting paint on it, it might just look like a muddy, hot mess. And of course, I think about that in regard to some of my art, right? I try to have a nice, neat plan before I go in. But sometimes I feel like it comments on my life. I feel like that in everything I do, I have to have some kind of plan, some kind of outline, some kind of structure. And it doesn't have to be tight. It can just be like a sketch of what I think I'm going to do for myself or someone else next. Because I found that if I just jump into something, there's a higher chance that it may turn out worse than what you thought it would. And I know that's not applicable to everyone, but to me, it really does help sort of keep a sense of calm and balance and understanding this idea of a process. Everything is a process and everything happens in its own time. Me as a person, I'm in the middle of growing. I'm a sketch of myself. I can't rush it. Things will happen in time. So there's that.
Season 4, Episode 1 features Toddre living in Nairobi, Kenya. Such an amazing episode. In her episode, Toddre and I spoke about everything from her amazing legal career and experiences with the Peace Corps to her time in Spain and then her time in Kenya. And it was such an interesting conversation because we talked about healthcare, aging abroad, soft life, and how she has experienced wellness living abroad. So Toddre and I had a conversation about healthcare in Kenya, and our conversation really centered around aging abroad, which I think is such a fascinating topic and something I definitely will be exploring in further episodes and on the blog on flourishintheforeign.com. But specifically to Toddre, her vantage point is as a caregiver for her elderly mother. And Toddre shared her experience of caregiving in Kenya.
So the situation with my mom was just, it was not good. You know, Flourishing in the Foreign is about wellness, Black women in wellness. And that's something, if I'm going to keep it 100, that's something I have been dealing with. I have had a complete shift in lifestyle. I am child free. I am a divorcee. And I've just been living life on my own terms, moving and shaking how I feel like it. And then I get numerous calls and texts. Your mom is not well. And the reality is that she was an absentee parent for most of my life. So now she's here living with me. So there is being a caregiver, which is stressful. And then there's also being the caregiver of a parent who was neglectful. So my wellness and my journey with that it's ongoing. And fortunately, I do have support. So I remember and she's a baby boomer. So I remember when one of her friends who's a retired nurse was communicating to me about my mom, who was in Indiana at the time. And I was like, I'm bringing her here. It just don't sit right for me to have her in some state-run facility in Indiana. And I can't get to her when she needs me. And this woman was just like, oh, well, I Googled Kenya's healthcare and there's 7 out of all the African countries and that's not going to be good for her. And, da, 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 da. And I'm like, so what's the alternative? I'm her only child. So ultimately, I decided to bring her here. Fortunately, I have had people in my corner who were willing to help with that. And the health care that she gets, it's private and it's very good. In fact, she wrote about it. My mom even wrote about how she was impressed with the health care. So it's less expensive than the US, but again, I don't have health care here. And that's probably something I should look into. That can be a little tricky living abroad. But like I've paid for health care for my housekeeper. They have a national health care program. It is, I want to say 6,500 shillings annually, which is roughly 58 US dollars annually. Includes vision, includes dental for my housekeeper and her 2 children. Now, I'm able to afford that, right? But my housekeeper, apparently, it's a struggle for most people. But just imagine, she can go and get her teeth looked after, her ulcers, all of this stuff. With my mom, when she got here, I took her to my chiropractor, get x-rays, etc. And again, when I go out of town, I'm able to have people stay at my house to look after my mom for 1,000 shillings per day. That's $8 a day. And I'm paying more than the average Kenyan would. There are Kenyans who are paying their nannies less than $3 a day to look after their most prized, not really possession, but your offspring. The other thing I should touch on is if you decide to, let's say, place your parent in a facility, it's relatively cheap here. You know what I'm saying? I looked into a place. I was like, oh, I think she would be happy here. She would have her own round cottage with a thatched roof and everything. I think it was like 1,200 US dollars per month. That's something that her Social Security would cover. So that's something to consider. And it's something that I'm also thinking about. Like, okay, I'm about to be 50 next year. I'm child free, etc. What am I going to do? So I have a friend who's also African American. I can't say that, but she grew up in Miami, was born in Poland. And she's like, there's a lot of women like you and I. What's going to happen when we reach a certain age and we need assistance? So she's looking at going into that business of, these caring facilities that will actually allow you to thrive and it won't be a fast decline.
Soft life, the best life, the only way to do life. If y'all haven't caught my episode and IG Live about soft life in particular to moving abroad and building a business abroad, I don't know where y'all been, but go ahead and check that out. Speaking of soft life, I asked Toddre what were her thoughts on soft living.
Yeah, I'm all for the soft life. We are people, African Americans and Black South Africans as well. We are a people who are descendants of women who were domestics, who were forced to work, and men as well. But I think about my grandmother who was a domestic. And I think about her mother who also, they had their own side hustles, right? But they worked hard. My grandfathers, they worked in a steel mill. So I feel like they did the work so I wouldn't have to. I remember being in law school and one of my white American friends, she was cleaning rooms at local motel to make ends meet. And she was like, trying to talk me into it. And I was like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. And she was looking at me like, oh, so you're too good. I'm like, no, my grandmothers did that for me. That's not a path that I need to go down. So definitely the soft life is afforded to people who have means. So there's that. But I'm all for it. And that's another perk to being in a developing nation. Labor is cheap. So you can afford to have a nanny. You can afford to have a live-in housekeeper, a chef. Right now, my mom is living with me and I can afford to have a caregiver here with us. I couldn't do that in the States.
Wellness. What does wellness mean to you? What does it mean in the context of moving abroad, living abroad? It's something that I ponder every single day, truly. And so I asked Toddre what is her personal definition of wellness and how has that definition, perhaps that practice, evolved as she has lived abroad?
That's such a yummy question because wellness, it can be so many things, but to me, it's like yoni steams. It's a slower pace of life. It's being able to commune with my friends when I want to, because I'm an introvert. So I don't always want to, being able to come into my living room and sit down and read a book, going into my kitchen and just doing a kitchen mask with whatever I have in there, be it activated charcoal or cinnamon or turmeric or whatever it is. That's wellness for me. And then not having to deal with these micro and macro aggressions that we deal with in the global north, in the skin that we're in. That's why I stay here, because Asia is cheaper. Like, Asia is the for real soft life. You got people paying $200 a month and they have their own private swimming pool. You know what I'm saying? So what really keeps me in here in Africa is just I'm able to blend in. I'm able to be myself. I'm not fetishized. I'm not a novelty. That's not something that I'm looking for personally. So that's wellness. Wellness for me is eating fresh food. Zanzibar more than any place, but it was like the first time I had really fresh food in a long time. Your produce don't last but a few days. Imagine that. You got to eat that quick. I'm like, what is happening here? The first time I had like fresh food in Zanzibar, the brain synapses in my head, they would just pop. They were just firing. Like, what is this? And that is wellness. Just watching people mature. My generation, the baby boomers, my mom as well. I'm just like, your wellness is your health. And also, your wellness is your meditation, your soul journey. So that's something I'm able to do before I hop out the bed, is I'm able to just go through my rituals. I light my candle, I put my essential oils in there and just really meditate and center myself before I go out into the world and impact it with energy that may not serve me or anyone else.
Season 4, episode 8 features Sheila in Andorra. Sheila has such an amazing story of how basketball has taken her abroad, and she also was just so incredibly vulnerable, speaking about survivor's guilt. And I think it's important, before we speak about her wellness and how it's evolved, to really frame where she's coming from. And I think discussing survivor's guilt and her struggles with that really illuminates how her wellness practice has evolved through her time abroad. Survivor's guilt is commonly defined as a very specific form of guilt that is developed in people who have survived a life-threatening situation or tragic circumstances in which they feel guilty that they survived, that they lived, that they persevered, that they escaped the situation. And this is a subject that I find really fascinating and has actually been a reoccurring topic of discussion with many of the women that I've met abroad. And so I asked Sheila if she experiences survivor's guilt, and if so, why?
This is a sensitive topic because at some point when I left, and it didn't stem from me going away to college, but at some point, like I said, my mom adopted 11 of us and then she had 3 of her own. But some of my siblings are estranged and people went their own ways, but there was this core. My mom's 2 oldest daughters, my sisters who are now, one's going to be 60 next year, the other one's who just turned 55. Man, at one point, I don't know what happened. I had come home for the summer. When the season was over, even when I was playing here abroad, I went home for a couple months. And I don't know what happened, where I got into argument with my sister and my nephew over the car that I bought my mom. And my sister made a point in a very spitefully way to tell me that my mom said that I'm actually not her real daughter. I'm her adopted daughter. And it doesn't really matter that I'm in Spain because the real family's home. And my mom, of course, my mom had said that at some point. when she wasn't feeling well with me because I had made the decision to be abroad and have a relationship abroad, which meant that I would likely continue staying abroad. But I had heard from my family. My mom went through her own grieving process and the 5 stages of grief. Well, shock, denial, all the way to acceptance. And me and my mom went through that from the time I left for college through the time that I went abroad. And then we got to the point of acceptance. And by the time we got to that stage of acceptance that I wasn't going to be home all the time, but I was still going to be around and I was still going to take care of her. Our relationship was fabulous. My mom passed away May 8th, 2021, so just over a year ago. When she passed away, she says I was her miracle, I was her blessing, because of my family was dysfunctional as dysfunctional could be. And for many reasons, and there's a lot of fingers to be pointed in, but it was a lot of survivor's guilt. And a lot of survivor's guilt that turned into me taking out student loans that I shouldn't have taken out. The majority of my student loans that I have now that I'm still prepaying now are because I made sure my mom was taken care of. And I made sure because she was only on Social Security by the time I went, and so it meant I had student loans and giving my mom thousands of dollars just to make sure that she was okay. But it was also guilt. It was guilt because I knew that in order for me to have what I wanted in life, I had to do this. And I knew to satisfy the needs of my family, which meant my sisters stopped working when they were in their 50s or 40s and 50s because of mental illness, whatever, a lot of different reasons. And my mom was just fitting the bill on a lot of, she was paying their rent, she was paying and for me, to feel okay with not being there helping out physically, I had to send money. I had to do this. I had to fight for my own survival. And it meant a lot of times being like the outsider. I got oh, you don't care about us. You're in Spain. Oh, you have your new family. I got all of that. Not so much my mom as my 2 sisters. So a lot of that was, and granted, they were grown women by the time I was even born. But I got all of it. I went through a lot of it, struggles. And actually, I have to say, my mom was the glue that kept us together. Because when she passed, before we even had funeral services, our family exploded in the most ugly, hateful way possible. And I was made the scapegoat by my sisters that I thought were my second and third moms. And since my mom passed, it's been over a year. I haven't talked to my 2 oldest sisters because they literally called me and my brothers and sister adoptees. And I had never, ever heard that word from anyone in my family, apart from that one time. And the entire time I thought that they were my sisters. Blood didn't matter. I thought that my mom was my mom. And I still think my mom, and my mom's best friend when she passed, and I explained to her what was going on. She said, she didn't get to choose those 2 daughters. Of course, she had children, but she chose me. She chose to adopt me. And so it's been challenging. And on top of it, because my brothers were in trouble, they can't get a passport right now. So I've been here 8 years. I haven't had any family come visit me. I had friends from college. I've had friends from Scotland. No one in my family. And I told my sister and my nephew multiple times, if you guys get your passport, $160 a person, I'll pay for you to come out here and visit me. Never did it. Their thing was, oh no, I'm not getting on an airplane, going over that ocean. And of course, I had to swallow that because it was my decision to come here. And so I also had to go through the stages of grief, especially over the last year and a half, and accept that I have family, but I don't have any relationship with them. And I have a part of my life over the last 8 years that I'm not going to be able to really share with them. My brothers, I have 3 brothers that are a year older than me, my biological brother that my mom also adopted, and then 2 other brothers that she adopted that I grew up with from the time we were infants. I'm very close to them, even more so now that my mom passed, because they helped to protect me when I was being attacked and things. And last week I went to Morocco and my brother was really like saying, I dream to go there. You're living out my dreams. And I said, but I want your dreams and these type of these experiences to be ours. I want one day to be able to say that I went to Africa with my brothers, or my brothers came to Europe, so that they can be a part of my family here. And the good thing is that they're all at a point in their life, they're 31, 32, and 35, where they're finally getting on their feet. And I don't care that it took this long, because I know that for the average American, it's a struggle. But they're proud of me. My brother told me yesterday that he's so proud of me, that he always knew that I was going to be the star. And for me, that was really, it made me cry, because I don't know if they really appreciated me being away. And so hearing from that, what has been, and they've told me all the time, my brothers have definitely shown that they've been proud of me, but it's still been hard to not experience this part of my life with them for the greater part of my adult life. For me, coming from where I came from and growing up, wellness was always making ends meet, having enough to get through the month. And while I still have that philosophy, I think it's extended to physical health and wellness, taking care of myself, being mindful of my relationships. It's something that I'm learning more and more about myself, because especially on the physical part, because being an athlete, everything was easy. But now I have to make a conscious effort to go to the gym. I have to make a conscious effort to diet, because now I'm not playing, so I'm not burning any calories. And that's the physical wellness, but I think it's important. But then also the emotional wellness it's a challenge. I've had a lot of loss in the last year and a half, both with the passing of my mom, the separation of my family. So it's been emotionally also very challenging. Right now I'm seeing a psychiatrist because I face struggles. And I know that basketball, which used to be my zen, my therapy, I don't have that either. And I'm also dealing with the loss of that. So it's a lot of things that emotionally I have been having to deal with. And I know that I can no longer deal with it on my own. And it's not something that I want or think that my partner has to take on as a responsibility. And so I've taken upon myself to see a psychiatrist to make sure that I'm okay. And when I'm not okay, which was like this past week, I called him and said, look, I need to see you because I haven't been okay. And for me, it's just being also conscious of that and knowing that there are resources, be it going to the gym, be it going to see a psychiatrist, be it changing your diet, intermittent fasting, whatever, so that I live a healthy, long life and I'm able to accomplish what it is that I still want to accomplish.
Hey everyone, I hope you've been enjoying this special episode of Flourish in the Foreign. And if you have, I hope that you will share this episode with your friends, your family, your colleagues, maybe even the ones that you like. And how about you be generous and send to the ones that you don't like too? I'm just saying. If you feel so compelled, you can always tip the podcast at buymeacoffee.com/flourishforeign. And if these stories of wellness are resonating with you and you're ready to bet on yourself, but really ready to cultivate a life well lived abroad, I urge you to take advantage of my limited time offer, which is the personalized coaching for the Move Abroad with Intention course. This is a unique opportunity. You get full access to the Move Abroad with Intention course, and you get to chat with me for 1 hour each week. Yes, it's a pretty incredible opportunity because if you've been listening to this podcast or follow me for any amount of time, you know I don't really do that. I love to do group coaching, but I do have the time to open it up and to offer this. And I hope that for those of you that it resonates with, you'll take advantage of it. You have 2 options, a 5-week course or a 6-week course, and you can learn more about this limited time offer through the link in the description of this episode. All right, back to the episode. Season 1, episode 46, features Wanda, and I asked Wanda what is her definition of wellness and how she thought her travels abroad had influenced that practice of wellness.
It very much goes back to that little girl in Marion, Illinois, who was figuring a way out that girl knew that she didn't belong, and she didn't know exactly where she did belong, but she knew it wasn't there. And that was an important part of my process. And it's the same thing with the United States. There's something about my spirit. There's something about my energy, who I am as a person. Being there does not lend to my wellness. And in saying yes to myself and all the scary parts that came with saying yes to myself, I was able to say yes to my wellness, to my seeing myself as a whole person, to taking action towards having a fulfilling, holistic, and well life. And so that's mostly been my wellness. Now I have some other challenges because of my hermit, because of my tendency towards being a hermit. I have lost some movement in my life, and I've tried a couple different things. So my wellness is not exactly where I want it to be right now. But in terms of, there's always something to improve. But in terms of overall, I'm not in America. And even being in Vietnam, I was not in America, and it was way better. Even though I did not like it there and I developed anxiety there, I was not in America.
Season 4, Episode 4 features Tiandra in Montevideo, Uruguay. And before we got into Tiandra's definition of wellness, I wanted to share with y'all a really special moment from our interview where she spoke about belonging, because I think that helps to really set the stage for her experience and practice of wellness abroad. Belonging is a subject I'm really interested in lately, because it's one thing to move to a place and to live somewhere, but it's an entirely different thing to feel like you belong in a place. And I have interviewed guests that did not feel as if they belonged in their home country. And I have interviewed guests that went abroad and still did not feel as if they belonged. So I asked Tiandra her thoughts on belonging and living in Uruguay.
I do feel that I belong here, and I feel like I am wanted here. And that's because of the people of Uruguay. I mean, every time I run into someone randomly on the street, they always know I'm not from here. And they ask me, where are you from? And I tell them, and they say, oh, and of course, why are you here? And then they also, at the end of the conversation, they always go, oh, well, bienvenidos. To enjoy our country. Welcome to being here. We hope you enjoy. And then whenever I got my residency, or when I would do things that were very Uruguayan in nature, maybe drinking mate or maybe using certain phrases, my friends and people around be like, you're Uruguayan. You belong here. This is your country. This is your home. And I've had my friends say, this is your home. And excuse me. And that is just an amazing feeling, to go to a country that you know nothing about, it's the first country I've ever been to. And for the people to say, this is your home. We welcome you here. That is something I never thought I would experience. And it has made my love for this country and being here that much more profound.
Wellness. I asked Tiandra, what is her personal definition of wellness? And how has moving to Montevideo influenced and perhaps evolved her concept and practice of wellness?
For me, wellness is just taking care of yourself in all aspects, mind, body, and spirit. And that can look different for everyone, because everyone has their own way of caring for themselves. And for me, wellness is like being more gentle with myself, saying, hey, you did this, enjoy this, celebrating myself, and also forgiving myself, in certain things. And I feel like being abroad, I have this ability to have the peace that I want, that allows me to get more clear on wellness for myself. And I feel like food has been a big thing. Like my mom always cooked for us. We were never fast food kids. But when I moved to Uruguay, it's so much less of what we're used to in the States. Like I'm making more things by hand. And, you know, the way I eat has changed and the stress that I had is lessened. And so my wellness has just, I feel like, blossomed. And it's still, I feel like it's a constant thing, right? It's never cut off or ended. And now I feel like I'm working on emotional wellness. Emotional wellness, I feel like, is something I'm currently exploring and trying to understand more.
Season 5, Episode 1 features Erin in Valencia, Spain. Erin is a friend of mine, and I love listening to her interview over and over again, but I also love hanging out with her. In this snippet from her interview, I wanted to share not only her definition of wellness, but she also shared so much wisdom as well. I gave her the option of sharing with me something she wished people would ask her, and she chose to share her thoughts on the importance of learning how to be alone. And I think that is so important in this wellness journey abroad.
I think wellness for me is about creating an environment in which I can thrive. It's about the full environment in which I live and breathe, and not just in a high level, kind of 30,000 foot altitude version of environment. It's the micro environment that is taking place in every minute of every day. It's what is the environment that I'm in? Is this an environment in which I can thrive this hour? Now, what about this hour? What about this? Now this whole day is taking place. Am I putting myself intentionally in an environment where I feel like I can thrive? And so wellness to me is the environment that I create for myself. And that's physical. That's what kind of a work schedule am I creating for myself? What kind of food am I eating? What kind of air am I breathing? You know, am I going to the mountains on occasion? What are the things what are the micro environments that I'm putting myself? What does my physical space feel like? You know, even just something like a candle on my desk shifts what my environment feels like because it shifts what it smells like and it shifts what I'm looking at. I'm reminded that I bought this candle because I like it and I can do that for myself. It's just these small things that collectively create that 30,000 foot view of what my environment ultimately looks and feels like. And that environment is what produces wellness. But I think that the kind of more specific level is the notion of thriving. So I can create an environment in which I can thrive, but I also have to think about what do I mean by thrive? What is thriving for me? And that's the thing that I think changes. And it's good that it changes. Like what thriving meant for me when I was 22 means something very different to me now. And what environment I need to create that, what wellness looks like is different now than it was when I was 20, in my 20s or in my 30s even. And so being able to constantly like evaluate with myself, what is thriving for me? What feels like an environment in which that can happen? And then being dedicated to create that. I think the most important thing my mom ever said to me when I was growing up is that happiness is a choice that you alone get to make. Your circumstances don't make that for you. They don't create that for you. People can't create that for you. You choose how you're going to respond to things and you choose whether or not you're going to be happy at any given moment and whether or not you can find contentment in that moment. And sometimes it's harder than others, but it's a choice. And that choice, I think, is about making wellness a reality. Am I going to choose an environment? Sometimes the only power you have is to create an environment like in your mind. You may not have control of your circumstances even at that level. Some people don't. But what does it mean for you to create an environment in which you can thrive just in your own mind in that moment? And what do you need to do for yourself to get to that space? It's not necessarily fully independent in the sense that you don't need anyone or nothing, you don't need anything. It's that you have control over the decisions that you're making mentally to choose that.
like what resources do you need to find in order to be able to create mental health for yourself, in order to create wellness for yourself? What do you need to pursue? And I'm way oversimplifying this because obviously it's never that easy as to say, like, I'm just going to hit the switch and be happy. But I think it's a dedication. It's that same question about, what's the environment that I'm going to intentionally create in a micro way? In these 5 minutes, what can I do to create a space in which I can personally thrive and get out of whatever muck I have in my head around this? How do I get out of that? Just here. And then maybe I can think about, well, hey, I'm in IKEA. Let me buy this candle because later I'm going to love seeing it on my desk. And so it's these little tiny micro choices, these little things that ultimately create a much larger environment, and just feeling a sense of power and a sense of agency to be able to develop that for myself in a way that feels good for me.
I give Erin the option of answering a final question or for her to share with you all something that she wishes people would ask her about.
I love that last question. That's my favorite. So I'll take that one on. I think something that people should ask me that they don't typically ask. Wow. I mean, I think one of the things that they don't ask when they're talking about moving abroad is, what does it mean for you to be alone in that space? People are constantly thinking about how they connect or how they learn language or how they make money or how, what neighborhood to live in or all of these other things. But what they don't often consider, especially in the early time, is how do you be alone? Like, what does it mean for you to be alone with yourself? How do you do that well? How do you do that right? And it's funny because that's the question I think they should ask, but I also can't tell you the right answer for it's the kind of thing that everybody kind of has to learn for themselves. But I think you've got to be brave enough to take it on. And I think people aren't even thinking about it. They look up one day and they find themselves alone and they're like, what do I? Oh, is this a reflection? Like, am I a failure because I'm by myself in this moment? Or like, is this loneliness, or is this empowerment? Or is this like, what is this thing? How do I describe being alone? How do I make it fit into a universe where we don't even talk about that much in our society? We don't talk about how to be alone. And I think one of the best things you can do is travel alone. One of the ways you can do that is like go to a concert there's an artist you really like, go to a concert, do it around an event, and go to that concert in this other country or even in this other state, if you're in the US, and just go be by yourself for a minute and enjoy who you are and enjoy not having to negotiate anything with anybody. You eat when you want to eat, you wake up when you want to wake up, you go to the landmarks if you feel like it, you sleep in if you don't. I mean, just being able to appreciate who you are, how funny you are. Like, nobody gets your jokes like you, not anyone. And just the quirks about you, just really being able to not just love yourself, because I think that is a thing that people are talking more and more about now. Gratefully, loving yourself is something that, we do, at least more than before, have conversations about. But it's the alone part of it. And, just being alone, intentionally alone sometimes, choosing like, I'm going to spend this afternoon by myself because I want to. Or maybe even having an intention with the time that you spend by yourself is another strategy. Like, I want to spend this afternoon, I'm going to go for a walk. And while I'm on my walk, I want to think about, what some of my interests are, like how I'm going to how I'm going to make an opportunity for me to snorkel more. Like, I recently discovered that I love snorkeling and I didn't know that before. And so I want to spend some time thinking about, well, what is that going to mean for me in my life? Nobody else needs to care about that but me. That's something I can do by myself, and how I can spend alone time, in a way that feels really healthy. So I think it's just that decision about being alone and traveling alone and living alone, in some cases. And, so I know that people move abroad with family and all of that, and that's wonderful. But even then, there's a sense of aloneness when you're in a country that's not yours or that you didn't grow up in. And getting comfortable with that and feeling good about that and feeling proud about your decision to invest in yourself at that level, I think is a great thing to consider that we just don't often talk about.
So this episode is a compilation of wellness abroad. It'll probably be a series. The next episode is not going to come out next week, though. I'm just going to let y'all know right now, just up front, okay? It'll be a surprise. How about that? I felt really compelled to share this episode, to create this episode and to share with you because, I put the podcast on hiatus because I had been dealing with burnout for a while before I decided to put the podcast on hiatus. And I've lived abroad for now 7 years. And I can tell you that wellness is something that fluctuates with everyone, no matter where you are in the world. But it is something that has been such an interesting evolution for me as I've been abroad. As you know, this podcast is about exploring living abroad as a pathway to wellness. And it has been so fascinating how much I have changed and what I need to feel well and to flourish has changed. And so, just in full transparency, it has been quite difficult. And even during the hiatus, which has felt amazing, I love this podcast, but it's been feeling amazing not producing it. I have found myself confiding, complaining, whining to some of my best friends over voice notes, which is what, you do over WhatsApp voice notes. And one of my dearest friends in the world, Niana, who you all may know, she was the very first guest on this here podcast. She sent me back a voice note that she read me for filth. Let me just be honest. She read me for filth in the most loving way. And I got her permission to share a portion of what she sent me. I just wanted to be real about not only where I am, but how wellness changes. And Niana's been abroad for about 10 years. She used to live in Spain. Now she lives in the Netherlands. And it's always changing and it's always evolving, and having an amazing support network like I do has really been the difference for setting me straight. So hopefully these words will not only illuminate kind of where I've been at mentally in these months in hiatus, but maybe Niana will read y'all to filth too, lovingly, of course. So without further ado, my dear friend, Niana, again, you can check out her episode. It's season 1, episode 1, Reading Me for Filth, or helping me recenter my thoughts on wellness.
Hey, girl, you're silly. So your message itself just felt very, like like the current state of you. And I can tell that there's more behind it. Sometimes there's these times in your life where you're grabbing, and there are times when you're struggling, then there's times which I feel like most of the time it's just kind of boring. Like kind of flat. And sometimes I find it difficult to deal with just how boring my life is. I listen to you, I'm like, wow, if I had any of that, I'd already be excited with the fact that I had this, that, and all of this influx of new people and experiences and things in the city and the da da da. I feel like you are so determined and like super hyper focused on what you want out of life. Because of that, I just wonder if you're able to be content with just what your life already is, what you already have, what you're already doing. That stuff that you are kind of poo-pooing upon sounds like paradise. It's very goal orientated. And I'm not saying, of course, you have to have those goals. And I think that's what I like about you, is that that's one of the things I love about you, is that you have this very strong vision for yourself in the steps that you need to take to do it. And I wouldn't suggest settling because I don't think that's you. But I do think a challenge for you is to actually be content with your life just as it is. That you don't need the new house, the this, the that, the like just what you have already and what you've already accomplished. It's already great, Christine. And sometimes it's okay to take a little break. As from the moment I've met you, you have been focused on something. And it's just harder to be content with the small things in life and like turn your attention toward where you are now and the people that you just have now. Just what it is now. Even, I mean, yeah, it's easier said than done because I do think this is your personality, but I just feel like I want you to rest. Okay. Like to just instead of seeking opportunities, let the opportunities come to you kind of thing. Like just focus on yourself. And if it's going in the gym, getting Arnold Schwarzenegger, if it's spending time developing connections with Spanish people, if it's, passing a B1 level Spanish or something, or C1. I think you're already at C1, right? Or something. Turn it more towards, like something that isn't so pressurized. Because you say you want a house, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, I just bought a house and I would like to sell the house and rent a fucking space. I know that it's an asset and it's great and you get to change everything, but when you're responsible for everything in the house, it is not that great. And getting shit done in Spain is also very difficult. And I'm not even in Spain, but the grass ain't always greener. Like sometimes your grass that you have right now is green. And are you looking at the greenness of your life? Are you looking at the special moments in your life and really appreciating it? Because in 10 years, you may not be in a situation that you're in now. You have a lot more freedom right now. Like, this could be good. You might be in 5 years looking back at this time and romanticizing it. And you're not even doing that now. And there's no judgment here. I love you. I know that you are a strong person in regards to your visions and what you want to accomplish. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that's what makes you successful. And I think successful people, that's what sets them apart from the winners and the losers. So don't ever want to diminish that light. But I do feel like a refocusing and a more inward refocusing, a more, appreciation for the things, the life that you have, because it sounds fucking great. This is what I think the point is. Even if it's something you want, you may get that and it still not be great because it has nothing to do with the thing that you want. It's all about your perception of the experience itself and how you're experiencing things. And that won't be fixed by getting the thing. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making sense. I also think you need something new. Like, what do you like doing besides trying to be successful? Like, what are, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I mean, what are the inner work? What are the things that pull you besides success? And I don't mean it has to be a big thing. Like, you can develop your culinary skills. You can, I don't know, like, is there anything outside of just attaining these hallmarks for success? Money, houses, cars. 'Cause girl, it ain't giving what it's supposed to give. I wanted this house so bad. It's like the last. I mean, I feel like okay, it's nice, but the me today would make a different decision than the person who bought the house. It's a lot. It's a lot. I do think the aspects about you, like how you're always striving for what you want. I do not ever want to like discourage that or quell that because I think if anybody can find a way to like create that happiness, that it is you that'll get there. But like the pursuit of things and success, also, I just question is like, is that truly the way, to finding that contentness that I think is what we're all striving for, even though it's also money. You know what I mean? I want to send you the attraction of things, that these things that you want out of your life come to you because you are vibrating at your highest frequency. Like that high frequency, like Christine to the Christine power. Like, what does that look like? What is that? That is a joyous, content Christine that the things will just come to. And she doesn't have to seek them out, that they're just coming. And I think that already you have that, but I don't know if your frequency is vibing. It's like, do you believe in you say I know you believe in yourself, but do you believe in yourself? Do you? That's my eyes are closed and I'm trying to seek you out energetically. And I think I do think it's good that you're in the therapy because maybe that's helping you really get back into that essence of you and not distracted by pursuits, but no, literally like the Christine of it all. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm also gonna send you love because I love you. CC loves you. And you are loved. And that is certain. Anyway, that's enough philosophical ramblings. Okay, that's it. Okay, boo. Big kisses.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Flourish in the Foreign. And if this episode has moved you, if it has resonated with you, and if you've just been dreaming of a life abroad, but you really fear the unknown because, hey, the world is crazy and you don't necessarily want to leap from the frying pan into the fire, I highly suggest taking advantage of the limited time offer, Move Abroad with Intention, personalized coaching. This is a different option because you get access to the course, plus you get to chat one-on-one with me weekly for 5 to 6 weeks. It is a really intimate setting. So for those of you that have been looking to work with me and really want to work on your exit strategy, this is for you. If you are interested, as I said before, I've already started working with people, so I have a limited amount of time to bring on more people. So if this is for you, if you're like, she is speaking to me, this is in alignment with what I want to do, then take this as a sign to reach out to me so we can get started. Most of you guys know that Move Abroad with Intention is a group course. So that's how it is normally set up. And I can definitely tell you that I'm not going to be offering one-on-one regularly. So please take advantage of it if this is something that you're looking for. Come work with me. The information is in the link in the description of this episode. Shoot me an email. I'm looking forward to meeting you and working with you. As always, big thanks to Zachary Higgs for producing the music of this here podcast. Remember, it's not about moving abroad. It's not about being abroad. It's about flourishing abroad. So go abroad and cultivate a life well lived. I'll see you next time, which probably won't be next week, but I hope you guys are all well. Bye.